My phone lit up at 6:14 in the morning on a Wednesday. I was already awake. I had been awake since 5, sitting at my kitchen counter with coffee going cold in my hands, watching the sun come up over the city skyline. I had been waiting for this day for a long time. The notification was from TechCrunch. I already knew what it said. My publicist had sent me a preview the night before. But seeing it live, seeing my name in the headline next to the words acquired for $47 million, made something in my chest go very still and very quiet. I sat with it for a moment. Just me and the sunrise and the number. Then my phone buzzed again. It was a text from my mother. It said, "Maya, your father and I would love to have you over for Sunday dinner. It's been too long. We have some exciting news to share. Please come. We miss you." I read it twice. "We miss you." I had not heard from my mother in 9 months. No calls on my birthday. No texts on Thanksgiving. No response to the email I sent in March asking if my grandmother's health was improving. 9 months of silence so complete, I had started to wonder if I had imagined having a family at all. But the TechCrunch article had gone up at 6 in the morning, and by 6:17, my mother missed me. I set my phone face down on the counter. I looked out at the skyline again. I thought about the last time my mother had called me, really called me, not about something she needed, and I genuinely could not remember. I thought about my brother. I thought about the night of the product launch, and I felt something settle in my stomach like cold metal. I picked the phone back up. I typed, "I'll be there." To understand why I felt nothing when I read my mother's text, you have to understand what happened 18 months ago. You have to understand the night of my product launch, because that was the night everything became clear to me in a way it had never been clear before. I had spent 2 years building FinPath. It was a financial planning platform designed specifically for first-generation college students, people who grew up like me, people whose parents never taught them what a Roth IRA was, or how to negotiate a salary, or what it meant when a lease said, first and last month plus security deposit. I built it because I had needed it at 22 and it didn't exist. I built it in the evenings after my day job, then full-time after I quit, then with a small team after our seed round, then with a real team after our Series A. The launch party was at a rooftop venue in downtown Chicago. I had rented the whole floor. I had fairy lights strung across the ceiling and a bar with an open tab and a DJ who played the kind of music that made people feel like something important was happening. Because something important was happening. I had worked for it for 2 years without sleeping properly. I had earned it. I sent my family the invitation 6 weeks early. I sent them calendar holds. I texted reminders. I offered to pay for gas, for the train, for a hotel room if they wanted to stay the night. I wanted them there. I still wanted them there then. My mother said she would come. My father said he would try. My brother Caleb said he was pretty sure he could make it, depended on his schedule. Caleb's schedule. Caleb, who at 28 had never held a job for longer than 4 months. Caleb, who my parents had been supporting financially since he dropped out of college to pursue his music career, which consisted of posting covers on Instagram and occasionally playing at a bar in Naperville for tips. The night of the launch, I stood at the entrance of that rooftop venue for 45 minutes waiting for them. The guests were arriving. My investors were there. My team was there. The photographer I had hired was asking me if we should start the family photos. My mother texted at 7:48. "Caleb has a show tonight, honey. You know how his manager is about these things. We couldn't miss it. Maybe we can do brunch this weekend?" I stood there holding my phone with the noise of the party behind me and the city lights below me and that text on my screen. And I thought, brunch this weekend. 18 months of my life, and she said, brunch this weekend. I went back inside. I smiled at everyone. I gave the speech I had practiced. I clinked glasses and took pictures and laughed when people made jokes. And at 11 o'clock, when the venue started to empty out, I went into the single-stall bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the floor in my launch night dress and cried until I couldn't anymore. Then I washed my face. I put on fresh lipstick. I walked out and thanked the last guests for coming. I never called my mother about that night. I never asked why Caleb's bar show mattered more than a moment, 18 months in the making. I had learned by then that asking got me nowhere. It only gave them the chance to explain why they were right, and I was too sensitive, Instead, I went quiet. I stopped reaching out. And for 9 months, they let me. That was data. 9 months of silence was data. It told me everything I needed to know about the terms of the relationship and who was expected to do the work of maintaining it. So, when the TechCrunch article went up and my mother texted within 17 minutes, I felt no warmth. I felt only the cold clarity of a person who finally understands the math. I spent the week before Sunday doing what I always do before an important meeting. I prepared. I made calls. I read documents. I had my attorney pull public filings. I had my financial analyst run numbers on the DeLuca family restaurant group, which was my father's business. 3 Italian restaurants in the Chicago suburbs that he had opened in the late 90s and expanded in the early 2000s on the strength of good timing and cheap real estate. By the time I was done reading, I had a picture that was not pretty. The restaurants were struggling. 2 of the 3 locations had seen foot traffic drop by more than half since 2021. The flagship location in Elmhurst had a Yelp rating of 3.1 after a string of bad reviews about slow service and food that had really gone downhill. The commercial lease on that location was held by a property management company called Northgate Holdings. The other 2 locations were in strip malls whose landlords had already filed for 1 breach of contract notice each in the past 14 months. My father had taken out a business line of credit at an interest rate that made me wince. He had not paid payroll taxes in 2 quarters. The IRS had sent 2 notices. I found them in the public database. And then there was Caleb, who had an LLC, Caleb DeLuca Music Group, that my parents had capitalized with $80,000 of their personal savings. Caleb, who had 1,200 Instagram followers and had not released original music in over a year. Caleb, who based on the bank routing numbers in a civil filing I found, had his personal expenses running through the business account. I sat back in my chair after reading all of this. I felt a strange mix of things. There was sadness, but it was old and familiar, not sharp anymore. There was something that might have been pity. And underneath it, there was the cold, focused clarity of someone who has been underestimated their whole life and is very tired of pretending otherwise. I made one more call. It was to a commercial real estate firm. Then I chose what to wear. My closet is different now than it was 2 years ago. I have clothes that cost what I used to make in a month. I have a blazer I bought in New York that makes people in rooms take me seriously before I have said a single word. I reached for it, then put it back. I thought about what I needed them to see on Sunday. I needed them to see the version of me they expected. The quiet one, the serious one, the one who worked too hard and didn't know how to have fun. The one they had always found slightly boring compared to Caleb. I pulled out a plain navy cardigan, dark jeans, simple flats, no jewelry except for small gold studs. I pulled my hair back the way I used to wear it in college. I looked in the mirror and I looked like the Maya they thought they knew. Dependable. Unremarkable. Safe. Good. I drove to Elmhurst in my old Civic. Not the car I bought last year. The Civic had a crack in the passenger side mirror that I had never gotten fixed. It smelled like the old gym bag I kept in the trunk. When I pulled into my parents' driveway and parked next to my father's new Cadillac Escalade, the Civic looked like it belonged to the neighbor's college-aged kid. I sat in the car for 2 minutes before going in. I took deep, even breaths. I was not nervous. I was something more precise than nervous. I was ready. My mother opened the door before I could knock. Maya. She pulled me into a hug that was warm and immediate and theatrical in the way that only happens when someone has been rehearsing it. She smelled like the perfume she always wore, and she held on a beat too long. We are so happy you came. Come in. Come in. The house was the same as always. The good china was out on the dining room table. She had made lasagna, my favorite from childhood. There were breadsticks in a basket with a cloth napkin. She had gone to effort. I noticed the effort, and I noted what it meant. My father came in from the living room and gripped my shoulder with one big hand. There she is, he said, and his voice was proud in a way it had never been when I was struggling, only now that there was a number attached to my name. The TechCrunch girl. Hi, Dad. Caleb was on the couch. He looked up from his phone and gave me a loose wave. Hey, Caleb. He had not reached out after the article. Not a text. Not a reaction on Instagram. Nothing. But he had shown up for free lasagna on a Sunday, so here we were. We sat down to eat. My mother served. My father poured wine. A bottle that still had the price tag on it. A bottle he would not have opened on a regular Sunday, which told me the performance had started before I walked in the door. They asked about the acquisition. They asked which company had bought FinPath. They asked if I would be staying on to run it or if I had sold completely. And what did that mean exactly? Did I get the whole $47 million or was it split with investors? I answered carefully, vaguely, giving numbers that were true but not complete. I watched my father do the math behind his eyes. I watched my mother watch my father. Caleb mostly ate and looked at his phone under the table. "We are just so proud of you," my mother said. She reached across the table and put her hand over mine. "I always said Maya was going to do something remarkable. Didn't I say that, Robert?" My father nodded. "Smart as a whip, this one. Always was." I cut my lasagna into neat squares. "You mentioned you had news," I said. "Something exciting." The energy at the table shifted slightly. My father cleared his throat. My mother's hand returned to her own side of the table. "Right," my father said. He sat up straighter. "We do." He got up and went to the sideboard. He came back with a folder, not a sleek professional presentation like the one in my analysis, just a manila folder with paper sticking out of the top. He set it on the table beside his plate. "You know the restaurants have been going through some changes," he started. "Challenging market," my mother added quickly. "Everything is challenging right now," my father continued. "Costs are up, staffing is a nightmare, the whole industry is struggling, but we have a plan." He opened the folder and pulled out a printed sheet. It had been formatted at home, I could tell. Something made in Microsoft Word with clip art borders. It said DeLuca 2.0, a new vision at the top. "We're thinking about pivoting the Elmhurst location, upscale it, do a full renovation, private dining, chef's table experience, premium cocktail menu. The building has great bones." "That sounds like a significant investment," I said. "It is," my father said. "It's the right move, though. The neighborhood is changing. There's money moving in. We get ahead of it now. We capture that market." He paused. He looked at me in the way he used to look at me when he wanted something and was deciding how to ask. "But a project like this requires capital up front. More than we have liquid right now." "How much?" I asked. He looked at my mother. She looked at the tablecloth. "We need about $400,000, he said. "To get the contractor in, clear some of the existing obligations on the business, and give us runway while the renovation is underway." $400,000. I took a sip of water. "It's an investment," my mother said. Her voice was bright, practiced. "You'd be investing in the family business. We'd pay you back with interest, of course. And honestly, Maya, this place, it's part of your history. You grew up eating at that restaurant. It has your grandfather's name on the awning." "DeLuca's," I said. "Your grandfather built that from nothing," my father said, and his voice got the tone it always got when he talked about my grandfather. Reverent, slightly defensive, like he was protecting something fragile. "Same as you built your company from nothing. It's in the blood." Caleb looked up from his phone for the first time in 10 minutes. "Yeah, it would be sick to have you on board. Like a family empire thing." I looked at my brother. He had a piece of breadstick in his hand. He looked genuinely unbothered, the way only someone who has never had to worry about money looks when other people are asking for it. "Can I ask some questions?" I said to my father. "Of course." He spread his hands. "The Elmhurst location, the commercial lease. What are the current terms?" My father blinked. "We're in a month-to-month arrangement with the property management company. It's fine." "Month-to-month," I repeated. "That's flexible, but it also means no stability. You can be asked to vacate with 30 days' notice." "That hasn't been an issue," he said, a little less comfortably. "And the business line of credit, what's the current balance?" He shifted in his chair. "We're carrying some debt, yes. That's why we need the bridge." "The payroll tax situation with the IRS," I said. The table went quiet. My mother's fork clinked against her plate. "Where did you?" my father started. "Public record," I said. "The IRS files notices of federal tax liens in the public database. 2 notices. One from August, one from November. Combined, you owe about $62,000 in back payroll taxes." My father's face had gone a color I recognized from childhood. It was the color that came before the raised voice. "You investigated us," he said. His tone was flat and cold. Your own family. I did research before a significant financial decision, I said. That's not investigating, Dad. That's due diligence. That's what you always told me to do. You said never sign anything without reading it first. Remember? You said that when I was 12 and I was about to sign up for a book club. He didn't say anything. The $400,000, I continued. I want to understand where it would actually go. Because the renovation you're describing, I looked up comparable projects in Elmhurst, and a full restaurant renovation of that scope typically runs $600,000 to $800,000. $400,000 doesn't cover a renovation, it covers debts. My mother made a small sound. The IRS lien, I said. The outstanding balance on the line of credit, which based on the public filing is approximately $140,000, and the 2 breach notices from the landlords at the Naperville locations. $400,000 doesn't build anything new, Dad. It just delays the existing collapse. My father slammed his palm on the table. The breadstick basket jumped. That is enough, he said. You come into this house, into your mother's house, and you talk about our finances like you're an auditor. We are your family. I know, I said. We raised you. We put you through school. I had a full academic scholarship, I said. And I worked 22 hours a week. You contributed $1,000 my freshman year, and I was grateful for it. $1,000 was a lot of money to us then, my mother said. Her voice had gone thin. I know it was, I said. And I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm saying that $400,000 is also a lot of money, and I need to understand what I would actually be buying before I spend it. You'd be buying the future of this family, my father said. He was trying to sound authoritative, but something had gone out of his voice. He sounded tired. You'd be investing in something real. Something with history, instead of some app that some corporation just bought and is going to run into the ground in 3 years. FinPath has 2 million active users, I said. It has helped documented hundreds of thousands of people manage their finances for the first time. It's not an app, it's infrastructure. You know what I mean. I do, I said. I just want you to hear it said out loud. Caleb had put his phone all the way down. He was watching us the way someone watches a car accident, not uncomfortable enough to look away. I took a breath. I looked at all 3 of them. I'm not going to give you the $400,000, I said. My mother closed her eyes. My father's jaw tightened. I'm not saying that to punish you, I continued. I'm saying it because it's not a sound investment and because $400,000 would not save the business. It would buy you approximately 5 months before the same problems resurface with compounding interest. So that's it, my father said. You just came here to say no. No, I said. I came here to be honest with you, which is more than you were with me. What does that mean? I reached into my bag. I pulled out a thin folder of my own. Mine didn't have a title. It was just documents, organized by date, with tabs. 3 weeks ago, I said, when the TechCrunch story was in pre-publication and I knew it would run, I started looking at commercial real estate in the areas where your restaurants operate. I was looking for properties with distressed ownership, motivated sellers, outstanding obligations, landlords who needed liquidity. My father frowned. What does that have to do with Northgate Holdings? I said. He stopped. The property management company that holds the commercial lease on your Elmhurst location, I said. Northgate Holdings is a small firm. 3 principals, aging portfolio. 2 of their major tenants had already gone dark since 2022. They were looking to liquidate. I made them an offer on the Elmhurst property 14 days ago. I opened the folder and placed the first document on the table. They accepted. The room was very quiet. My father looked at the document. He looked at it for a long time without picking it up. Like he already knew what it said and picking it up would make it real. You own the building, he said. His voice came out strange. As of 10 days ago, I said, yes. My mother made a sound that was not quite a word. The Naperville locations, I continued, are in strip malls owned by 2 separate LLCs, both of which have their own financial pressures. I am in advanced conversations with both. I expect to finalize those acquisitions within the next 30 days. You bought our restaurant out from under us, my father said. I bought the building that your restaurant is in, I said. That's different. You are a tenant. I am now your landlord. I paused. And I has been your landlord technically for the past 10 days, which means the rent payment that was due last Wednesday was paid to a company that I own. The silence stretched. I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. I could hear a car passing outside. Why? My mother said. Her voice was barely there. Maya, why would you do this? I looked at her. I thought about the launch party. I thought about the 9 months of silence. I thought about the way she had put her hand over mine at dinner tonight, the practiced warmth of it. Because I needed to understand what I was walking into tonight, I said. And because I wanted to be in a position of clarity rather than supplication. In English, Caleb said. She wanted to hold the cards instead of beg for a seat at the table, my father said. He said it quietly, with something in his voice that was not quite anger anymore. Something older. Something like that, I said. My father pushed his chair back. He stood up and walked to the window that looked out on the backyard. He stood there with his back to us for a long moment. My mother stared at the folder on the table as if it might say something different if she looked long enough. Caleb looked at me. For the first time in the evening, he looked genuinely uncertain. So what happens now? Like, to the restaurant? That's what I want to talk about, I said. I didn't buy those buildings to close the restaurants. I bought them because the restaurants are worth saving, and because the people who work there deserve an employer who can actually make payroll. I looked at the back of my father's head. Dad, come sit down. He didn't move for a moment. Then he turned and came back to the table. He sat. He did not look like the man who had gripped my shoulder at the door. He looked smaller somehow, and it was not a satisfying thing to see. It was just true. I'm not here to take anything from you, I said. I want to be clear about that. I'm not doing this as punishment. I'm doing this because the business can survive, but not the way it's currently being run. And how would you run it, my father said. Not a question exactly, a statement with an edge. Differently, I said. I would bring in an operations manager, someone who has actually turned around struggling restaurant chains. I would renegotiate the line of credit. I would get the IRS situation resolved in the next 60 days. That's not as complicated as it sounds if you engage proactively. I would close the Naperville location that is performing worse and consolidate resources into Elmhurst and the other one. I opened the folder to the next section. I have a plan. I had it drawn up this week. My father looked at the papers I slid toward him. He did not pick them up, but he looked. What do we get? Caleb asked. I looked at my brother. He was asking about money, of course. That was the only register he operated in when it came to family business. The business continues, I said. Dad stays involved in an advisory capacity if he wants. He knows this industry. He knows the regulars, the vendors, the rhythms. That knowledge matters. But operational decisions go through the new manager, who reports to me as the property owner and primary investor. I paused. Caleb, the $80,000 that Mom and Dad put into your LLC comes off the books. That's gone. It's not something the business can carry anymore. Caleb's expression shifted. That's my capital. That was their capital, I said. And it was capital they took from a business that needed it. I'm not angry about it. I'm just telling you it won't continue. So you're just cutting me out, he said. I'm not cutting you out of anything, I said. I'm telling you the arrangement was unsustainable. If you want to pursue music, but not on the back of a restaurant business that can't afford it. My mother reached up and pressed her fingers to her temples. I don't understand how this happened, she said softly. I don't understand how we got here. I can tell you, I said, but I don't think tonight is the right time. Tell me, she said. She looked at me then, directly, and for the first time all evening the performance dropped. She just looked like my mother. Tired and a little frightened and genuinely confused. Please. I thought about all the things I could say. I could say, you skipped my launch party for Caleb's bar show. I could say, 9 months of silence and it took TechCrunch to get a text out of you. I could say, I used to cry about this, and then I stopped crying and started working, and the working turned into something, and this something is the reason we're having this conversation right now. Instead, I said, you taught me that love is earned. You didn't mean to teach me that, but you did. And I learned the lesson and I applied it everywhere, including here. My mother looked like she wanted to argue. Then she looked like she didn't have the language for it. My father was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was stripped of the business tone, the patriarch tone, every performance layer I had known my whole life. He just said, "I know we weren't always there when you needed us." "No," I agreed. "You weren't. I don't have a good reason for it. I know, I'm not asking for." He stopped, cleared his throat. "I'm not asking you to forget it." "Good," I said. "Because I won't." We sat with that for a moment. The lasagna had gone cold. The good wine was half drunk. The folder of documents sat in the middle of the table between us like a third party at the dinner. "The plan I drew up is fair," I said. "More than fair, actually, given the situation. I don't have to keep the restaurants operational. I could lease those buildings to someone else tomorrow and make the same money with a tenth of the complication. I'm choosing not to because the DeLuca name means something, and because 63 people work across those 3 locations, and they did not make the decisions that put the business in this position." My father nodded slowly. "But I need you to be honest with me going forward," I said. "Not managed, not packaged. Honest. If there are problems, I hear about them before they become crises. If decisions need to be made, I'm at the table. Not as your daughter asking permission, but as the person who is financially responsible for the outcomes." "That's a lot to ask," my father said. "I know," I said. "It used to be hard for me to ask for things. I'm getting better at it." He almost smiled at that. Almost. I gathered the folder. I stood up. I told them my attorney would send over the formal agreements in the next 48 hours. I told them to read everything before signing. I told them if they had questions, they should ask, and that if they decided they didn't want to work with me, I understood. And the severance arrangement was outlined on the last page. My mother walked me to the door. At the threshold, she stalked me with a hand on my arm. "Maya," she said, "the launch party. I think about it." I looked at her. I think about it, and I don't know how to explain what happened. I don't have a good reason. Caleb needed we thought he needed. She stopped, started again. "I should have been there." "Yes," I said. "You should have." "I'm sorry." I stood there holding the words for a second. I thought about how much I had wanted to hear them, once. How many times I had rehearsed that conversation in my head. What I would say, how I would respond, whether the apology would be enough to unknot something in my chest that had been tight for years. The apology was real. I believed she meant it, but it did not unknot anything. "Thank you for saying that," I said. Then I walked down the front steps to my dented Civic. I started the engine. I rolled out of the driveway and onto the quiet Sunday street. I did not block anyone on the drive home. I did not need to. That was new. That was different from how I had imagined this going, in all the versions I had run through in my head over the past 3 weeks. In those versions I had been colder, more surgical. I had imagined walking away with something that felt like winning. What I actually felt, pulling onto the interstate with the city lights ahead of me, was something quieter. Not victory, not grief. Just a sense of things being where they were supposed to be. The business had a chance now, a real chance. Not because of sentiment, but because the numbers supported it. And I had the resources to stabilize it, and I was going to make smart decisions for the 63 people whose names I had memorized from the employee roster my analyst pulled. My family had a chance now, too. What they did with it was not something I could control. I turned the radio on. I drove. The skyline appeared ahead of me, every light in every window belonging to someone with a whole private life I knew nothing about. I thought about the version of myself who had sat on a bathroom floor in a launch nightdress and cried without making a sound. I thought about how far she had carried everything, how long she had carried it alone. You don't need people to witness your work for the work to be real. You don't need the people who should have shown up to show up. You do not need their hands in the applause. You just need to know what you built and what it cost, and that you built it anyway. I took the exit for my neighborhood. I parked in my garage. I took the elevator up to my apartment and stood in the dark for a second before turning the lights on. Just stood there in the quiet. Then I went to the kitchen. I poured a glass of water. I leaned against the counter in the dark with the city lit up behind me through the windows, and I thought, this is mine. This moment. This quiet. This city. This life. All of it mine. And before I sleep tonight, I want to ask you something. If you're still watching, Have you ever had to stop waiting for someone to see you before you could see yourself? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story hit close to home, subscribe. There's more where this came from.